Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You ready for the word?
Yes, sir.
We will be in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. But we will begin by reading Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31. Last weekend, I made a trip to Charlotte, North Carolina. Opportunity was given to me to go up there. Sunday morning Sunday about noon, went through a training session at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Made 3 laps with a professional driver, then was put in a car by myself with a set of headphones, a spotter. I got in a very fast car and went very fast around the racetrack. 10 laps around the Charlotte Motor Speedway. And I tried all week to figure out how to work that into a sermon illustration and couldn't. So I'm just telling you.
That's right.
It was quite an experience. It'll make you grunt. It was fun. Are you in Deuteronomy 31 yet?
Yes, sir.
The first 5 books of the Bible are called what? Torah. Torah means what? Instruction. So let's let that sink in before we get started this morning. The first 5 books of the Bible are called the instruction. Right. No wonder men have built religions and denominations that don't look anything like they were meant to look, because they have built them without the instructions. You need the instructions when you're putting things together, right? Yeah. This book of instruction is also referred to as the book of Moses. Why is it called the book of Moses?
Moses.
The instruction was given to Moses, and he wrote down the instruction that Yahweh gave him. So it's referred to oftentimes as the book of Moses. Look in Deuteronomy 31:24. It's where we're told that Moses wrote it down. Deuteronomy 31:24. It's not the only place we're told, but here we are told. And it came to pass when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book. The words of this Torah in a book, or we could say it this way. He had made an end of writing the words of this instruction in a book. Notice it doesn't say he wrote 5 books.
Right.
He wrote 1 book.
Right.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are all 1 book. And they are in a book that's called the book of instruction or the book of instructions. Never, not once is it ever referred to as the books of instruction. And it's not referred to as the books of Moses. All of these were put in 1 book. Now let's allow that to sink in and cause us to rethink how we look at our Bibles. Here's what we have. Our Bible is made up of the book of instructions, the prophets, the writings, the Gospels, and the epistles. None of the other sections of the Bible are going to make any sense or have true meaning if you separate them from the first part, which is the instructions. Right. The Gospels cannot be read and understood properly if you separate them from the book of instruction. The epistles cannot be read and properly understood if you separate them from the book of instruction. And yet that's what men have tried to do. Right. They have tried to separate them from the instructions. If you try to build or establish doctrines, theologies, tenets of faith, or denominations from the Gospels without the book of instruction, you're going to have some twisted doctrine. You're going to have some warped theologies. You're going to have tenets of faith that are based on falsehood. And you're going to end up creating tens of thousands of denominations. Right. And that's exactly what's happened. Tens of thousands of denominations have been created. Some say 33,000 of them. Some say there's actually 51,000 denominations. Some say, there's 22. Well, regardless, there's tens of thousands of denominations that have been created. And I'm of the strong opinion that happened primarily because men came up with doctrines and theologies and tenets of faith without first studying and knowing the instructions.
Right.
Paul said in Ephesians, Paul said there is one body, one faith.
Right.
That one faith is defined for us and described for us in the book of instruction. And if you don't know the book of instruction, then you're going to have people who don't comprehend what the one body and the one faith is. And thus you're going to end up with tens of thousands of denominations. Go back sometime and read the Gospels and notice how many times the Messiah would refer people back to the instruction book. If they didn't understand that there was a resurrection, he'd take them back to the instruction book. If they didn't understand how to deal with a woman that was quote unquote caught in the act of adultery, he took them back to the instruction book. When somebody was healed, like the people with leprosy were healed, he dealt with them according to the instruction book. Notice how many times that the writers of the Gospels made reference to the book of instruction. And then reread the epistles and notice how many times they make reference to the book of instruction. Every other section of what we call the Bible is dependent upon the first part that contains all of the instruction.
Amen.
How important are those instructions? Look in Deuteronomy 4. Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them that you may live, and go in and possess the land which Yahweh Elohim of your fathers gives you. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahweh your Elohim which I command you. In Deuteronomy chapter 12, look in verse 32. What things soever I command you, observe to do it, that thou shalt not add thereto, nor diminish aught from it. The word diminish means to scrape off, to shave off, to lessen, or to withhold. You shall not withhold any part of it, or scrape off any part of it, right? So how important is this book of instruction? It's so important that twice Yahweh said, make sure you don't add anything to it. And make sure you don't even scrape off the smallest part of it. That's the reason the Messiah said, not one jot or tittle shall pass from that book of instruction. You can't scrape anything away from it. So what we call the first 5 books of the Bible are not ordinary books, not at all. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy are actually one book. And it was instruction from Yahweh given to Moses. And that book is the instruction to which all the other books have to be connected and have to be interpreted. That's why we began a study of them. We want to know this instruction. Now, we started this study by thinking we wanted to know the laws. And somebody had told us there were 613, so when I started, that's what I thought, well, we'll study the 613 laws because somebody told us that's what's in there. But then the Ruach HaKodesh caused us to understand Joshua chapter 1 verse 8, which says this book of the law, or this book of instruction shall not depart out of your mouth. You shall meditate therein day and night. Then you shall make your way prosperous. Then you shall have good success. So the Ruach HaKodesh highlighted that verse for us, where we saw it wasn't that Yahweh wanted Joshua or us to meditate on a bunch of laws. Learn these 613 laws and don't let them get out of your head. No, Yahweh said to him, this book of instruction shall not depart out of your mouth. It is a book. And we've got to change the way we think and see those what we call the first 5 books are actually one book, and it's instruction that Yahweh gave to us. In this book of instruction, there's information that we need to know. It's information that, according to Joshua 1:8, pushes us forward. It's information, according to Joshua 1:8, that makes us think intelligently. It makes us wise. This book of instruction is a book of information that came straight from Yahweh. Am I repeating myself? Yes. And I'm doing it on purpose. I want us to learn to stop thinking of this part of the book, or this part of our Bible, as 5 separate books. They're not, they're one book. And I want us to get it down on the inside of us that this book of instruction contains vital information that's given to us by our Creator. Vital information. While others are out there working feverishly, working hard. While others are out there working hard to develop theories of where everything came from, we have the information that instructs us already where it came from.
Right.
While others are out there doing all kind of tests trying to figure out how long it actually took to create everything, we've already been given that information.
Right.
And we know how long it took to create everything. And there is much, much more information in here that we need to know and we're going to come to know. So far in our study, we have learned from the instruction Yahweh's given us that He's the one that created the heavens and the earth. Didn't just happen. It didn't evolve. There wasn't an explosion. He did it. So far, we have learned that He created the heavens, the earth, and everything in them in 6 days.
Right.
So far, we have found this information that He ceased from all His work on the 7th day and He blessed it. He blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. What does sanctified mean?
Set it apart.
He set it apart. It is holy. He separated it from all the other days. There's really no need from what we've been told so far, and that's found in the first chapter, in the first 3 verses of chapter 2. There's really no need to then debate only if there's a span of time between Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 and Genesis chapter 1 verse 2. Or to debate a lot of the other things that men love to ponder and discuss and wax eloquent about. The information I need to know about creation was given to me by Yahweh. If I needed to know more information, He would have told me.
Right.
Evidently, it's not essential.
Right.
The only information I need to know is He created it. He created it all. He created it by Himself. And He did it in 6 days.
Right.
And He ceased from His labor on the 7th day, and He blessed it, and He sanctified it. The information that is found in the book of instruction never goes out of date.
Amen. Right.
You're never going to have to worry that there's going to be some new information that is going to arise, and it's going to make what is written obsolete. They might find information that verifies what's written in the book of instruction, but they're never going to find any information that makes what's written obsolete.
Right.
And there is no new event that will happen that will make what is written obsolete. Now here's why I say that. What it says about creation was, is, and always will be accurate.
Right.
It was created by Yahweh and He created it in 6 days. That was accurate. It is accurate. It will always be accurate. What it says about the 7th day was, is, and always will be accurate.
Yes, sir.
Yahweh blessed it. He sanctified it. He set it apart. It's holy. It's separate from every other day. Therefore, it is absurd for men to now claim that all days are holy. If you believe that all days are holy, you have a belief that does not have its origin in the book of instruction. And if you have a belief that doesn't line up with the instruction, you have a false belief. Well, I believe that all days are holy, and we can just worship on the day we choose. Well, you've chosen to believe a falsehood.
Right.
You've chosen to believe a lie. Because the book of instruction gives us information that tells us otherwise.
Right.
There is a day that Yahweh sanctified and set apart. The information we need is found in the book of instruction.
Yes, sir.
Now, those who would find fault with that statement and criticize it by saying that we don't emphasize the Messiah enough or talk about him enough or put enough emphasis on him, when I make a statement like the information we need is found in the book of instruction, that would upset some folks.
Right.
It'll ruffle their feathers. Y'all don't emphasize the Messiah enough. You don't talk about the Messiah enough. Well, when they make statements like that, they are revealing that they have no understanding or little understanding about what the book of instruction is about.
That's true.
Right.
Go to John 5. I promise we're going to get to Genesis 1 and 2 in a minute. I really want to get there. John chapter 5, you there?
Yes, sir.
Look at verse 45. Do not think that I will accuse you to the Father. There is one that accuses you, even Moses, in whom you put your trust. For had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he, say it out loud,
Wrote of me.
Moses wrote about me. But if you believe not his writings, how shall you believe my words? Huh? That's a serious issue here. It's a very serious issue for anyone who does not believe that they need what they call the Old Testament.
Right.
In the book of Moses, which is the book of instruction, Moses wrote about the Messiah.
Amen.
Messiah said, if you don't believe his writings, you can't believe what I'm telling you.
Right.
Because what I'm telling you lines up with everything he wrote.
Right.
If you don't believe him, you're not going to believe me.
Right.
I want to get into Genesis, and we will. But let's stop and look at that for a moment. Go to Matthew 5. Let's illustrate what Messiah's talking about. He said, if you don't believe what he wrote, you're not going to believe me. For he wrote of me. Matthew 5, verse 17. Think not that I am come to destroy the law, is what it says. What's he referring to? Torah, which is the instruction. Do not think that I came to destroy the instructions or the prophets. I'm not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the instructions, from the law, from Torah. Well, why can't one jot or one tittle pass? Because in the instruction it says you shall not shave off the least little bit.
Right.
Right? Till all be fulfilled. Well, why do people have trouble believing these words from the Messiah? He said, I did not come to destroy the law, but people contradict that. Why do they have trouble believing it?
They shaved it off.
Because they shaved it off. They have trouble believing it because they don't believe Moses.
Right.
They don't put any stock in what he said anymore. And if you don't put any stock in what he said, you can't put any stock in what the Messiah said. And even though the Messiah himself tells people, do not even let it enter your thinking that I came to destroy the law, people not only think it, they say it.
Right.
Listen to him. Do not think that I came to destroy this book of instruction. I did not come to destroy this book of instruction. I came to fulfill the book of instructions. I came to do them and to preach them. Men who have decided to ignore or devalue Torah find it easy to not believe that the Messiah meant what he said here. They find it easy to take the word fulfill and claim that that word really means to eliminate them by doing them. Fulfill never means to eliminate. To abolish, destroy, annihilate. That's not the words he used. He used the word to fulfill. And to fulfill means to fully do.
Right.
I came to fully do the book of instruction. But Messiah said, had you believed Moses, you would have believed me. People don't believe he meant what he said there because they don't believe Moses. Look in Matthew 7, then we'll move on. Not everyone, verse 21, not everyone that says unto me, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father which is in heaven. What is the will of the Father? How in the world could we ever find out what the will of the Father is?
Read the instruction.
Well, He gave us a book of instruction. How about that? So it's not a stretch to say, not everyone that says unto me, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does what's written in the book of instruction. Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, and in your name cast out devils, and in your name done many wonderful works? And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. Many will say, and I will say to the many, depart from me, you that work iniquity. Those who do not believe the writings of Moses find it easy to not believe the Messiah when he says that there are going to be many that he is going to send out of his presence, even though they claim to be his followers, and even though they claim to have served him, and even though they protest and claim that everything they did it in his name. He said many of those he's going to send out of his presence because they did not keep the book of instruction. Right. Workers of iniquity, anomia, means lawless ones, you who broke the law. That's what the Messiah said. He said no matter how much you claim to love him and serve him and do everything you do in his name, he said if you don't follow the instructions found in the book of instruction, he said I'm going to tell you to get out of my sight because you're making a false claim. You're not one of mine. Right. And this truth is reiterated in Revelation 12 and in Revelation 14. In both of those places, it speaks of those who have the faith of the Messiah and keep the commandments. So that 3 times we're told that just claiming you follow him is not enough. Right? So let me say it again. The information we need is found in the book of instruction, and we need to learn it, keep it, and do it. Yes, sir. So, we've been given 3 important pieces of information so far out of Genesis chapter 1 and out of the first 3 verses of chapter 2. Yahweh created the heavens and the earth, everything in them. He created them in 6 days. He rested on the 7th day, blessed it, and he sanctified it. Now let's go look at chapter 2. And see what other information we're given. From here, I think we'll begin to be able to pick up some speed, cover more chapters. But today, we're just going to look at chapter 2. And we're going to extract the information that's given to us in chapter 2 as we read it. We're going to pick up in chapter 2, verse 4, since we've already covered the first 3 verses last week. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4. These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For Yahweh Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth, and watered the whole face of the ground. Let's stop right there. Because here we're given information about plants and herbs, or what I like to call food. If you're going to have food, we're told some essential things that are needed for it to be considered food. Yeah. 1, we need a knowledge that Yahweh created it all. And so what we eat should come forth from that source, what Yahweh created. Stay with that. Avoid things that have been genetically modified. Yes, okay. So the first thing, vital information we need is the way Yahweh created it is the way it ought to go in our bodies because he created us too. Correct. He created the plants, he created the food. We know it. For it to be food, it's going to need sunshine. It's going to need water. It talks about the water there. Talked about the sun in the first chapter. And it's going to need dirt or soil. So Yahweh created it. Needs sunshine, needs water, it needs soil. What else does it need? We're told it needs one more thing.
Someone to take care of it.
A man to till it. Our job is not to grow food. We plant, we rise night and day, it grows up, we know not how. That's what the Bible says. Our job's not to make it grow. Our job is to till the soil. Till the soil literally means serve it. Serve the soil. Our job is to protect it. If the soil gets destroyed, the process that Yahweh set in place will not work. And soil can be destroyed with poisons and contaminants. Health issues arising because men spraying things on the soil that ought not be sprayed. Right? Our job is to protect the soil, till the soil, serve the soil. Yahweh set a process in place that works.
Right.
He told us to take care of the soil. I think I heard Jamie say this back during when we were celebrating tabernacles, that a real farmer does not grow produce. A real farmer grows soil. He farms soil. He protects his soil. If you protect the soil, it'll grow anything, right? So that's what we're to do. Well, that's vital information. Stay with food Yahweh created. Avoid GMOs. Protect the soil that grows your food. Let's look at more information. Verse 7. And Yahweh Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground, and he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So here's some vital information. We're formed out of the dust. Years ago, I had a professor who loved to tell us on occasion, often, that we were nothing but a bunch of walking, talking mud balls. He must have forgot to read the rest of the verse. We were made from the dirt, from the dust of the ground. But Yahweh breathed into us his breath.
Yes.
And when he did, we became more than a mud ball.
Right.
Right.
We have the very life of Yahweh in us.
Yes, sir.
That's vital information.
Right. Right.
And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight, and good for food. The tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. We'll talk more about that next week. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into four heads. The name of the first is Pison, that is which compasses the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There's bdellium and the onyx stone, and the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hadakel. That is it which goes toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And Yahweh Elohim took the man, put him in the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. The word translated dress there is the same word translated till earlier. So he put him in the garden to till it and to keep it. That word keep there means what we know it means. Protect. To guard, protect, put a hedge about it. So he was to guard it, protect it, put a hedge about it, and he was to till it. So let me say this. Work is not a curse.
Right.
The thorns may be a curse, but work is not. Yahweh expects a man to work. From day one, he put him in the garden and put him to work.
Right.
If he wants to eat, he has to work.
Right. Amen.
This information found here in the book of instruction is why Paul could put forth the doctrine he put forth in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 when he said, for even when we were with you, this we commanded you, that if any man would not work, neither should he eat. For we hear there are some which walk among you disorderly, working not at all, but are busybodies. To not work is called, in 2 Thessalonians 3, called being disorderly. It's out of order. The proper order is, if you want to eat, you got to work.
Right. Amen.
And if you're not willing to work, that's fine. You don't get to eat.
That's right.
That order was established in the book of instruction in Genesis 2.
Yeah.
Any society that forgets that is going to be weighted down with a debt that they cannot bear.
Right.
You keep giving free food to people,
Yep.
you eventually will crash.
Yes, sir.
Moving on. Verse 16. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For in the day that you eat thereof you shall surely die. Again, we'll talk more about this next week when we find that this instruction got violated. But here's what I want us to pay attention to for today. Number one, Yahweh expects us to work. Number two, Yahweh expects us to trust Him and obey Him. If He tells us something, it's for our own good.
Right.
He gave this information to Adam because He knew that there would be another who would come along later and lie about it.
Right.
So it would behoove us, it would be to our benefit to pay attention to what happened right here. That's how we need to learn to look at the information that's found in the book of instruction. Every time Yahweh tells us something in this book of instruction, which is a flood of information, He's telling us because He knows there are going to come thousands upon thousands who are going to lie to us about stuff.
Right.
And if we're ever confused, all we have to do is go back and look at what's written.
Right.
Because He gave us information that is true. What He said is true.
Right.
So if we just stick with what He said, we'll be okay.
Yes, sir.
If we stick with what He said, we don't have to be confused.
Right.
It doesn't matter what they're saying and how good it might sound. Go back to what He said.
Right.
Because He's telling us the truth. Read on, verse 18. And Yahweh Elohim said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make a help meet for him. The Hebrew word translated alone. You ready? You know what that word is? Anybody found it yet? The Hebrew word for alone is spelled B-A-D. It's pronounced bad. Normally it would be bald or have a W sound in it. Not this time. It is pronounced bad. I love it. Alone is bad. Man needs a helper and a help meet for him. Not a helpmate, but a help meet for him. Two separate words. He needs an aid and a counterpart. An aid and a counterpart. Watch the process, then I want to tell you a quick story. Let's watch how Yahweh did this for him. Verse 19. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air. And He brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. Stop right there and acknowledge everything has to have a name. So it's absurd to think that our Elohim does not have a name.
That's right.
Everything has a name.
Right.
And it's equally absurd to think that we can give Him a name and call Him whatever we want to. No, He didn't walk in front of Adam and say, what do you want to call me?
Right.
No, He gave His name.
Yeah.
But everything else has a name, no matter how tiny it is, no matter how big it is.
Right.
No matter how close it is, no matter how far it is. Everything has a name.
Yes, sir.
The garden had a name.
Yeah.
The dirt had a name. Everything has a name.
Right.
Okay? Verse 20. That's reading 6,823 times we're told that our Creator has a name.
Yes, sir.
Verse 20. And Adam gave names to all cattle, to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him, an aid and counterpart for him. Now mark that. Last weekend while I was in Charlotte on my business trip, so I could have worked that illustration in right here. Anyway, last week while I was in Charlotte on my business trip, I had 3 people who at one time or the other came up to me to show me pictures out of their cell phones. One person called them his grandchildren. The 2 other people said, here, let me show you pictures of my babies. All 3 people showed me pictures of, take a guess, their dogs. One called them his grandchildren. One called them, or 2 of them called them their babies. These were not women. These were grown men. Showing me pictures of their babies and grandchildren, which were dogs. No one actually showed me a picture of their son. Nobody actually showed me a picture of their daughter. Nobody actually showed me a picture of their wife. It was their dogs. Yesterday, I did have a lady who talked about how cold it was going to get this weekend and told me she was worried about her babies. And pulled out her phone and said, here, you want to see pictures of my babies? 3 dogs. Right? To which I asked this question. What has happened?
Seriously.
What has happened?
It's ungodly.
There is an unnatural affection developing in the world for animals.
Yes, sir.
They are not our companions. They are not our family. They are not our children. They're not our grandchildren. They are animals. I'm not saying that we're not supposed to have them. I'm not saying that we're not supposed to care for them. But when you start loving them like you do a person, or more than you do a person, there is something wrong with that.
Amen.
I know that this statement is not going to be very popular, but it's true nonetheless. There is a spirit at work in the world that is causing people to have unnatural affections. Listen, there's a spirit at work. See, this would have never happened 25, 30 years ago. If it had, it would have been a fringe thing. Now it's more than just out there on the fringes. But there is a spirit at work in the world causing unnatural affections. It's manifested in things like you see people more concerned about a whale than they are about a baby in a mother's womb.
Right. Right.
That's an unnatural affection.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to save trees. I'm going to save the forest. I'm going to save whales. I'm going to save owls. Kill that baby.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
That's unnatural.
Right.
They will love in an unnatural way people of the same sex. The one that we're to be connected to is to be a counterpart.
Right.
Counter.
Yeah.
Different than.
Right. Right.
Which means different sex than. Okay? They will love illegal aliens and hate their neighbor.
It's true.
It's an unnatural affection. They will love darkness, they'll hate light, they'll love lies and hate truth. All of these things are unnatural affection. And it's also manifesting in the love that people are developing for their pets.
Yeah.
Calling them family. Sending them to spas. Don't let that take hold of your heart. Keep the love for a pet in its proper place. do not elevate it above where it should be. That's all I'm saying. I'm just reading the instructions. There was not a helpmeet found for him among the animals. Read on. Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from man made he a woman, which brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, or Isha, because she was taken out of man. That's an exclamation of joy. Adam has just spent his time naming all the animals. Then Yahweh caused a deep sleep to come upon him, and then when he woke up, here's a different thing altogether standing in front of him. And it got him excited.
Yeah.
Whoo! He said, This is bone of my bones. This is flesh of my flesh. Isha! Yeah! See? She was taken out of me. She's part of me, but a counterpart of me.
Right.
He's excited. Verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, shall cleave unto his wife. And that word translated wife there is the word translated woman in verse 23. Isha. He shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave unto his woman. And they shall be one flesh. They were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. Well, this is vital information given to us in the book of instruction.
Yes, sir.
Why do people now think it's okay to have same-sex marriages? Because there are denominations throughout the land who have taught America to ignore the book of instruction.
Right.
We're not bound by that book anymore. Right?
Right.
But the book of instruction was given to us for a reason. Once you ignore the book of instruction, then every man begins to do that which is right in his own eyes.
Right.
And that's what's happened in the land. And it's all of the denominations who are at fault for this.
Right.
Let me close by rehearsing the vital information Yahweh has given us so far. 1, He created everything. 2, He created it in 6 days. 3, He ceased from his labor on the 7th day. He blessed it and sanctified the 7th day. It's different than every other day. We're told that immediately. Immediately we're told that the 7th day is different than every other day. Number 4, we're told about food. It has to come from Yahweh. It needs sun, water, soil, and a man to till the soil. Number 5, Yahweh from the beginning expected man to work.
Right.
That is, if he wants to eat.
Right.
Even in what we call paradise, man still has to work.
Right.
There is no paradise apart from working. Number 6, everything has a name. That's vital information. Vital information number 7, animals are beneficial in their place, but we're not to have unnatural affection for them. Number 8, woman is made from man, bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. And vital information number 9, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, to his woman, not to another man.
Right. Amen.
To ignore this information is to ignore instruction from the Father. To ignore the instruction is to come up with crazy theories, is to have warped doctrines, and it is to create a society that cannot endure. So, read and follow the instructions. You do understand that as we go through this study, it will not be about trying to find out how to be politically correct. What we're going to be doing is discovering the instruction. And we're not going to make the instruction fit the society that we live in. We're going to make our beliefs fit the instruction that we were given.
Yes, sir.
Because we want to do what? Think like He thinks, which is to think intelligently. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace. As His name is put upon you, so shall He bless you. Hallelujah.